you can always make more money, you can never make more time. If you say to yourself, okay, well, time is my most valuable asset. We only have 4,000 weeks to live. If you've started to build good communication skills in your life, if you just carry those over to your professional world, you end up being very successful. But if you continue to build bad communication skills, you're gonna struggle. And I was like, oh my gosh, if you could only let others know how awesome you are, the balance of learning how to be an advocate for your work as well as doing great work. Because who else is gonna be your cheerleader? Especially if you're a solo entrepreneur. That's going to help elevate your work. How do you understand what their needs are, and then how do you provide them a thing out of your toolbox to solve that problem?
I have the D20 here for you, and you're going to roll initiative on your next freelance project.
Wonderful.
To see how well.
I normally roll so terrible in all campaigns.
Hello and welcome to the tavern. Welcome to the Creative Adventure Podcast. Put down your sword, put down your axe, put away your bow and arrow, close Procreate, close Blender, Cinema 4D, ZBrush, whatever you use, and join me to the conversation I had with a very good friend and mentor of mine, Daniel Adoff. He is the owner and founding artist of the branding and illustration studio Dyno Creative. They are based out of Orange County, California, and in this episode we talk about some of the practical tools that him and I both use for being freelancers, being entrepreneurs, even though that word makes my skin crawl. We talk about some of the practical things that we do, along with some of the mindset shifts that we've had to embrace to become good freelancers. That becomes being our own cheerleaders and reinforcing good habits to help us grow our career into something that we're super excited about, while also still being creative as people. So why don't we get into the tavern, pull up a stool, grab your stew, grab your mead, and join me by the fire for a conversation with my friend Daniel Adoff. Welcome to the Creative Adventure Podcast. Thank you so much for being on this episode today. For my audience, for a bit of context, you've been a mentor to me since I figured out what the heck art is. So Dan and I, we met in, what was it?
I don't know, it's been like
many
easily
years.
10 years.
Yeah, easily 10 years. And
maybe more.
Even before I started doing photography and video, through a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And then halfway along the way, I hit you up randomly to do a little video for your drink and draw that you've been doing for a very long time, and that just spiraled into an amazing set of collaborations.
The first time we met? I mean, is that the first time we worked together for just random drink and draw stuff? Probably.
Yeah, I just showed up. I was like, hey, could I come over and bring my camera and all that? So
that is one of your great things about you, is you do a great job of inserting yourself in places in a like positive, friendly way. Not like, hey, I'm going to interrupt your life. It's, hey, can I help tell your story? And I think you've done a great job of translating that around your entire career.
I really appreciate it, but this is about you today. So
sorry.
No. So before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that Dan has been an amazing mentor to me, and I was wondering if you could kick us off with a little bit about your artistic journey. But before that, I want you to answer one question. If you were to be in a battle in a fantasy world, what weapon do you bring to the battle? Or what class are you?
Like as myself, or imaginary version?
As you. Like you're
because
a freelancer.
Like right now I'm playing a cook monk in D&D.
Okay.
Who has a giant wok that heals people with its like when I cook things in this giant wok.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, all of our D&D characters are always a variation, extension of ourselves. So yeah, that's that version my game, but I think probably for me, if I was a personification of myself, I think still, that's the funny thing, I think it would still be a little bit, because I currently do Muay Thai kickboxing, and I still like the art of the 8 limbs and like that type of hands, elbows, knees, kicks stuff.
Okay.
So that's,
Okay.
I mean, I think empowered, gauntlets or something like that
Okay. Okay.
is definitely a vibe that, but who can be upset? There's so many choices.
There are many choices in the fantasy realm.
But I think we're gonna go with empowered gauntlets.
Okay. Okay. Empowered gauntlets in your class is like a monk sort of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably I would go with like monk and like, after years of Street Fighter and things like that, I would want to be able to shoot fireball type things, obviously. Who
Okay.
doesn't?
Okay, very good. So I'm curious how, I want you to share your creative journey because I want to start dissecting how like you being this like monk that's bringing just gauntlet to your fist, how that also translates to your creative journey, how you've...
Oh, I don't know if I thought about it that deeply, but if we go back in the day, I grew up with computers, and what I mean by that is I will age myself very exactly. I was born in 1984. The fantastic ad by Apple came out and saying 1984 is not going to be like 1984. That was one of the first powerful Mac computers, and then throughout that, I got to see the evolution of the internet, and all those different things happen through its entirety. My family was always loosely related within creativity. We had a t-shirt shop. We screen printed t-shirts. As a young kid, I blasted screens. I learned how to do that at a young age. And I always was surrounded, and I understood that you could sell creativity for money, and that was a valuable thing to people. And I think a lot of people maybe don't, representation ends up being really important. So if you have, this could happen for you, I think that's a huge important thing for people. So that was an establishing thing for me. Fast forward time, another big portion that always existed was playing role-playing games, and I first started playing, I don't know, D&D second edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and then I did a lot of the Palladium system with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff like that, and then through high school, I was also the weird combination of someone who was in theater and doing sports. So like I was a goalie in water polo. I did that. I actually, after my high school career, I continued to actually build a water polo program from about 10 people to over 150 people. So it's been interesting with these pieces of being shown art and entrepreneurship, and then taking that on and continuing to extrapolate that for myself with this idea of understanding game mechanics and playing games. I don't know about you, Jags, but when I was a kid, I had this weird thought, which only now I realize is weird, is that people do the job that they want to do. Like a garbage man actually wants to be a garbage man. Mm-hmm. Or, because my parents chose to make a t-shirt shop. My mom chose to be a minister. They chose to do these type of jobs. And so I got the silly notion in my head, well, you get to choose your job. I want to do art stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pursue this and get the pieces. I'm going to collect the Triforce to make that happen. But I realize how often people don't actually get to do the job that they want to do. Maybe they make it their hobby. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of that, but that's been a continual catalyst, and maybe my stubbornness has continued me to go, oh, well, I should keep doing creativity because you're supposed to do the job you want, not the job you have to do.
Okay, I actually did not know that you were in theater, and I did not know that your parents were creative when you were younger. And that tells me a
Kind of.
lot about who you are today, because the way I look at you now is you are like incredibly good at sales, incredibly good at like putting forth the creativity as a business. Like I think that's something that not many people think about. Like, hey, how can we turn this gift of art and turn it into something that, I don't want to say commercial, because commercial is sometimes a dirty word, but to an extent we're making commercial art, so then we can make a living. I'm curious, like, what are some of the character traits and qualities that your parents had, or the ones that you developed when you were in high school doing theater and water polo, and then how you pivoted from like, okay, I see art when I'm a kid, now I'm doing with this water polo thing, and then you pivot back into the art realm and bringing all that stuff together.
Well, and that's a big thing, is like you realize, and we talked about it before, but this idea of like skill trees. You know, we understand this idea of you start as your base class or whatever, and you have all these different choices. And us as people, we have infinite number of choices, but really actually sometimes these things are laid out for us, like how far do you advance this? Where is the crossover of these type of skills? And I think that the pieces of all of those parts of my class, if you will, of multi-classing to become whatever the entrepreneur guy, creative director thing that I am, it would be very difficult to jump into it and be like, all you need to do is follow this line. It's very much been a collection of all these different skills. And like what we were talking about, the idea of Iampic Club, which is just a fancy nerdy way of saying Shakespeare Club, and like doing choir, understanding how to project my voice, doing that again in water polo, understanding being a goalie in water polo and being a goalie in sports is a very interesting nature, because I realize how it's also affected me and how I built my business. I built my business in a way where it's odd that I'm now oftentimes going out to try to make the sale, to try to get people to understand the value of something, because it feels like it goes against my nature of, I'm not the one going out there to try to score. I'm going to play the defense, and I'm going to be the last line of defense to make sure that everything happens. So that's why a lot of times I feel very comfortable when working with clients, to make them feel safe, as well as the creative team feeling safe as well. And the modeling of my family with them demonstrating. My dad was very analytical, and my mom was more creative, more of a writer, but building a commercial art business. It was t-shirts, and seeing that as like, okay, you can sell art for a commodity, but it was always interesting and understanding how to pivot in a business, not necessarily sticking to a single line. Because I grew up in San Luis Obispo. San Luis Obispo is a fantastic town, but there's really two main economies. There is tourism, and there's the college. And during the summers, tourism is great. You can sell t-shirts that say, well, welcome to San Luis Obispo. And then during the time that rest of the year, that tourism nature isn't quite as good, the non-summer months. But my dad tapped into the Greek market and selling to the college students during that time. And then as those things were starting to shift, when we actually started closing down the business around 1997, 98, he was going, hey, I wonder if I try this. Before he was deciding to close it down, he was thinking, I wonder if I try this thing of selling t-shirts on this new concept that's online. And so he would have had one of the first online stores, which is just crazy to think about. And that type of, where is the next thing going? And like, how do you incorporate what you already have into this next step? So it's this balance of understanding structure with also creativity. And I think that that's been a continual important thing for me.
Okay. One thing that I'm pulling from that is it seems like both of your parents were very open-minded, and I've always looked at you as being a very open-minded person and trying new approaches to either business or art and having a very, like, I guess, forward-thinking, growth-oriented mindset. And I'm actually coming across a lot of content right now on that mindset. I'm getting through the book Do Hard Things by Steve M something. Anywho, link in the show notes. And it talks about like most of growth mindsets. It's a mindset. It's not like Olympic athletes are just as emotionally vulnerable as every other person. It's just they're coached into a certain mindset to achieve those amazing things. So how did your mindset evolve to feel so confident with what you do as someone who owns a creative agency in Orange County? And how did you build that mindset? And also talk a little bit about Dyno, because we haven't mentioned that at all.
Well, I want to kind of clear the air and make something very clear, that I think a lot of times that is the outward appearance for a lot of content out there. And I think you've also done a great job with it, Jags, is a lot of times people try to present an air of, I got it all together. It's all you got to do is you take my course and then you do the thing and then you follow this simple path and then money.
Magic happens. Yeah, absolutely not. It does not work that way.
That's not at all that way. And not only that is, you talk about Olympic athletes, you talk about this mindset, you talk about these things. You know, right now I train, my primary mode of physical activity is Muay Thai kickboxing. You know, I train with professional athletes, and Southern California was the hub of whenever you would go watch the Olympics. It was Southern California versus the world at the Olympics for water polo. You know, I know many of those Olympic athletes personally. It is not about building an invulnerable mindset where it's like, you know, David Goggins, you can't hurt me, like I'm a very surface level understanding of it. It's more actually with a little bit of same thing of what he said, where it's this idea of you have to draw from when you are struggling, you have to draw from your cookie jar, you need to draw from these moments of good stuff. Because at least for right now, things are not okay. Things are a challenge right now. But it's how do you assess that, and how do you go, what do I need, and who am I? That's what really that mindset is what is your identity? Who have you decided you are? And a good example I know for myself was when I was younger, I would always consider myself disorganized because I grew up with ADHD, and I was unmedicated because I was allergic to Ritalin, and that was the only choice I had. But, you know, there's other systems to address that. And I was constantly told that I was unorganized. And I was like, okay, well, that's who I am. Other people are telling me my identity. I'm reinforcing my identity when I'm making those mistakes. And then it's continually going. Rather than it being, now I am an organized person. But I use a lot of tools, I use a lot of systems, I use a lot of things to reinforce that identity of me being organized. And then I do things that are organized. But there's plenty of times that I make mistakes, that things don't go well. I mean, for yourself, Jags, you know, I know you've always made your lifts that you're trying to do, you know.
Oh, thank you.
No, you don't do it all the time.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's a really good point. And I'm glad you did bring up the fact that the current, at the time of recording this in 2025, and we're in June now. It's a little slow for all of our industries. Like you're in the illustration branding world. I'm in the motion graphics and board game world, and it's not as fluid. It's not flowing as much as we normally like it, and so I am so fascinated with how you stay so positive amidst all of this, because I can imagine because you also teach at LCAD. There's probably a lot of there's a negativity bias there of just like, oh, I shouldn't get into art because of all these things happening. How do you stay positive in a situation like this?
And that's really, it's who do you want to be? Who do you, and you talk about that type of mindset, is who do you want to be? Do you want, there's also the phrase of like, who do you surround yourself with? You'll become the people that you surround yourself with. And that's a proven fact. It's one of the reasons why they remove people that are struggling with addiction from that environment, and they go to rehab facilities or things like that, or even people that have had addictions elsewhere in the world, and then they move and they're able to eliminate that. So if I surround myself with great people.
Oh, thank you.
I surround myself with people that are going to try to make positive change. I surround myself with those type of people that are going to push me. One of the great things that I had learned, I don't know who it is that said it, but it's essentially, I learned at my gym, and I carried over to the rest of my existence, is you should always have someone you are mentoring, you should always have someone who is your peer, and you should always have someone who is mentoring you.
Okay.
And if you Pokemon it, who are your different evolutions? Is there a version of you that you're trying to help evolve to where you are? Are you in a place where you have somebody else that can continue to push you and try to push you? You're both trying to level up. Because at least with me, I'm a competitive person, but it's a healthy competition. Like we're both striving to, and it's like, high five, you did a great job.
Right.
We both did a great job. We celebrate each other's successes. And then someone else being like, I want to get there. How do I get there? Share your experiences.
Okay.
And so I do that, for example, at LCAD. It's really great to be able to be like, look at it and go, you're here. I want to make the path for you as easy as possible to get to where I am. And that's one of the reasons I teach. I restructured and teach a professional practice class, because, you spend all this time learning how to be a great creative, like actually make the thing and be really good at it. But we don't spend that much time of how to be in a meeting, of how to sell your work, how to put a portfolio together, how to do all of these things that are not actually make the actual work. And then but it is interesting because I oftentimes, students will look at me, or people that I'm mentoring look at me and go like, oh, you got it all together. And I'm like, I feel like I'm just figuring it out. Like every single day I'm figuring it out a little bit more, or I'm learning from my mentors, and they're learning from somebody else.
I think you bring up a good point, like like having those three different people in your life, because it forces you to reframe a lot of different perspectives throughout life. Because if you don't surround yourself with people who you can learn from, who you can teach, and who you can, I don't want to say compete, because compete is the wrong word, but like grow together with. That does force a lot of reframing, and like I can imagine for you, it very much was for me. Also, having grown up with being told I have a learning disability, of just like, wow, that's just me, and like there was a reframe that had to happen there. How did you, like when you are encouraging your students, how do you help them reinforce that sense of community, of collaborating with each other in a playful, non-competitive way? And then how do you also go about finding someone who you can mentee and mentor from?
Well, and that's, you talk about drink and draw. That was literally spawned from a little bit of what we're talking about, which was you don't realize how great it is to be in an environment like a college where you're in a class of whatever, 20 other people that are all trying to level up their creative skill set. And because it's like we're in this class, we're all doing the same thing. And then you get out of that, and especially for illustrators, you're a freelancer. You're sitting there talking to your dog, and that's it. And like, yeah, and you interact with other people that you're working with, but a lot of times they're not creatives. And so allowing this opportunity where you continually have this nature of, hey, I go to this little chill event and I hang out and I draw with my friends under no pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that. How do you take that and continue that sense of community?
Mm-hmm.
That was also a challenge that we ran into at Dyno because we were ahead of the curve before COVID. We didn't have an office. We were the weird ones because we were all remote anyways. And, we were doing things through Basecamp and Zoom and stuff like that. And that was not normal. But then essentially all the world came to us in that sense. But we realized that there was this continuous problem with how do you recreate an office environment in a digital setting and going about things in a new way, that type of creative problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And we went, well, a lot of us are on Discord because we play games and we do stuff like that. Why don't we use that create an office type setting? So like I have my office, which is just a video chat room, and anybody can stop in.
I'm not in your Discord.
Invite
me to your Discord.
Yeah,
I would love to just
yeah.
poke my head in and say
Yeah.
hi to you sometimes.
Totally. You're
Okay,
more than welcome
great.
to.
Okay.
That was the brainchild of Austin. Austin Haynes, my actual creative director. I'm just a pretty face at this point. But we were trying to solve this problem,
Mm-hmm.
which was we know community is important. And how do you have community in a virtual setting where you're oftentimes not seeing each other? Because we have people all over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it can feel very isolating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so how do you create that sense of community while still not forcing people to, log on?
Right.
Obviously you have meetings and things like that, but like, how do you create an open door for your office?
Right. Okay. So you kind of reminded me of something that I stay pretty disciplined with, and that is I try and make sure I do one. It's going to sound sleazy, but I'm going to say it anyways. One networking lunch per week. And that's whether it's meeting a new friend, maybe a new client, but that's like, I do at least one lunch or dinner a week. And that's how I can connect with people. And I'm really glad that you shared like building a sense of community, having this Discord, because it seems like you're also very disciplined with making sure that you're interacting with people. Because as a freelancer, it's so common to just like, all right, well, I'm going to log into my Adobe account and do my art, send it to the client via email, not talk to a single human being throughout your entire week, and then hope you get money after it. And how often does that work?
Well, and I think actually you hit on a really important point, which is, yes, we talk about this digital environment, but there's nothing that, like, we could do this over a Zoom chat. Wouldn't be as pretty, but, we could do it over a Zoom chat.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing gets rid of a human interaction. Mm-hmm. There's the wheel of demonstrating. You see it especially with negotiations, and it's, what is it? I think it's 80% is body language and things along those lines. And then it ends up being, I think it's 7% is actually what is said.
Interesting. I had not heard those statistics before.
And then it's also, then there's the whatever other percentage is how much is the actual, like what is said. The tonality of how it is said. So it's like that 7% math middle portion, and then like at least 80%. We can look it up. Everybody, go tell me I'm wrong.
Well, what I would love for you to share, because you and I have talked about this, but I think we should share it publicly. Like, what are some of the ways you have found to, if we're entering a digital age where it's harder to make like client conversations, make client calls, etc., go and meet the clients in person because everyone's busy. They're like meetings are happening less and less with clients because they just want to pay the lowest amount for
or they're
the project, burnt out on meeting. Yeah. So how do you bridge that gap with either your clients or your collaborators to make it still feel like as close to an in-person if in-person isn't possible?
I mean, that's a challenge. That's like, there's obviously, there's kind of the different levels of it. There's the obvious nature of in-person. That's what we want. Yeah. We want it in person. And then there's different variations within there, and we can get in that. And then obviously you have like a Zoom, some sort of video chat.
Virtual meeting.
And then there is the kind of next step, which I think, and you and I both like this nature of recording a video, asynchronous communication, but you're recording a video of like, hey, this is me walking through the deck, and then you attach a written version that they can scrub through with that.
And what tool do you use for that?
I use Vento. There's lots of different ones. I think Loom is normally the one that that's kind of the industry standards. I like Vento because it's cheap.
Okay.
And it does what I need, which is screen record for a short period of time.
Right.
And it has a transcript.
Okay.
Don't need much more than that.
Okay.
And then, obviously there's your favorite, and every single time you call me with it, you preface it by, I know you hate this. I don't hate it, Jack.
Okay.
Is a voice memo where you send it over text. It's just because I'm an old man and I use phones and I call and then I leave a message on the machine, which I also, pardon me while my old man moment of being like, why don't, if you call, leave a message.
Okay, fair, 100%. But what if I called you at 9:45 a.m. this morning?
Right. And
you would have been in a meeting, and that I think would have been.
But if you leave a message, just leave a message. If I don't answer, I don't answer, and then I check the message. But again, I can understand the other side of what you're saying is it's a less intrusive. If you just send a voice memo, it's like, hey, here it is. Deal with it when you do. The phone call is, hey, can you pay attention to me now? And I understand that kind of making that choice thereof. And then obviously the next step from that would be just writing a DM or a written email or some sort of just written communication, which oftentimes I like to do a blended element of those different things. I also very much am a huge proponent of things like I use TidyCal rather than Calendly because I think it's $40 forever.
It's 30. I paid it. I bought it. It was amazing.
$30 for period. That's it.
Yeah.
Rather than a monthly subscription. Plug for that.
Yeah.
Not paying.
We are not sponsored by
we're
TidyCal.
not sponsored by that, but it's just such a good deal.
Yeah.
And like that alleviates. Man, is that so much wasted time saved for everybody to be like, hey, when can you meet? Here's my calendar. And both, in person, whatever, via online, however you want to do it, and you can set that type of communication with that. But yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges with all of it is within communicating with somebody, what do they want?
Okay.
What is that person's communication level? And then also making sure communication is clear, because that's where everything is a relationship and everything is communication.
Okay,
Across the
so let's take a step into like where a lot of artists struggle as freelancers, and that is the communication around business language, and that business language typically involves money, involves deadlines, involves milestones. How do you encourage your students to be more comfortable talking about some of the hard, actionable things and not just lean into how pretty the art is? How do you get them to feel more comfortable talking about that, and how do you get them to feel that they can practice it effectively?
And the thing is I know, and that's what I've realized, especially with things like sports and art and entrepreneurship and being a husband and all of these things, it's all the same thing. You know, you're a great power lifter. I've done water polo. I've done Muay Thai. And like the mechanics of the foundation of everything comes from your feet of an athlete. Of whether it be art, whether it be relationships, whether it be business, whether it be any of these things, it comes down to that basic communication. So if you're up front, like literally we have a deck when we onboard a client that I go through and I say like, hey, these are the ground rules of the relationship. Like we're going to critique the work, not the person. We're not going to say to somebody, hey, you're a terrible person and I hate you. How dare you come up with such a terrible idea? It's, hey, I don't think that this is hitting the mark because we need to be able to represent the brand more clearly. That's a good ground rule. And even if it's like something that seems obvious, that's the thing. And that's something else that I had learned from teaching, which is if you cannot really assume much of anything. You need to test for competency. And you need to do that with clients, and you need to do that with everything. So where do we agree? Where do we need to have clarification? Because imagine trying to date somebody and you go in and they don't like seafood and you're like, it's delicious, eat it. It's like, well, this isn't something I want. And it's like, well, you're wrong. Like, you're wrong for thinking that.
Okay. I think what I'm getting at is that there's an empathy component to this, and I almost want to go into this realm of like, is there an ego component in it as well with artists where they can look at their work and like their process as being like correct, so much so that it's hard to have the empathy to understand how someone else perceives their work or their efforts and be offended by that. So I've always looked at you as someone who does not have a very big ego, or actually any ego at all.
I've definitely got an ego because not to say like you're wrong, but like I definitely have an ego. That's why you get into commercial art. You want to see your thing out there.
Okay.
Like you have to have some sort of ego. And again, I'm not like trying to say like, oh, you're wrong for even thinking that, but you have to have some sort of ego to be like, I want other people to see my pretty picture. Take a look at it. But you do definitely need to keep like a sense of collaboration, a sense of the way I look at it is, and the way I position my brand, and I always encourage my students to position their brands, you are not the Luke Skywalker of this story. You are the Obi-Wan of this story. You are the mentor. You are the one that is trying to make their dream a reality. And you get to influence in that. You get to be a part of it, and you get to help tell that story. You may give them the powers to make it happen, but you are not the one you are not going to be the one to destroy the Death Star. You are not the star of this show. And if you want that, build your own brand. Build your own thing. that's the great sense of entrepreneurship. You can build your own, product and sell it. But if you're doing commercial art for somebody else, you need to check that I'm the star of this show at the door. There needs to be clear communication. There needs to be not taking advantage of each other, but it needs to exist as this, hey, I'm doing this with you. And this is what I need, and this is what I understand that you need. Because oftentimes clients I've found, and partners in that sense, those creative partners, they don't have their prenup. And if you give them a prenup, you can go back to it. That's why statements of work are so important. That's why we have to-do lists in Basecamp. That's why there's all these systems in place. And it's just reinforcing, like the pedagogy of teaching, of there might be people that learn better visually. There might be people that learn better hearing it. There might be people learn better by doing it. And so if you can demonstrate your processes in all three of those ways, nobody has an excuse to be able to be like, I don't get it. I didn't understand that we needed to have this done at this point.
Okay, so you've been doing this for a very long time, and I'll say very straight up for everyone else that like I've kind of adopted your workflow and mindset. Like you shared some of your statement of work templates, and I kind of dissected them, destroyed them, and rebuilt them up. But it followed a lot of your structure. I was wondering if you could take a moment to like imagine you're talking to someone at like square one. What are some of the tools and techniques that someone who's just getting started could take to become the Obi-Wan Kenobi to help someone else blow up the Death Star? Yeah,
there's kind of two avenues. There's going through an art college or some sort of education in that setting, or there's I'm going to go to YouTube University. Which track do you want?
Let's do YouTube University, because I actually did have a meeting with another artist who at a big professional company who will remain nameless, and he said he wouldn't recommend people go to art school. As someone who works as a big professional game company person, so let's say YouTube University.
So I will say on that same respect, I think you could, if you took the exact same money that you were going to spend at a college and knew exactly how to spend it and did all the whatever, write online courses, get mentors, do all of those different things, you may be able to have an even better result than somebody going to a college. But the reason why an art school, an art college, or things like that are consistently a good choice is for somebody that doesn't know that workflow.
Okay, fair point.
To be, how valuable is your time? Like, because, Jags, generally you are a self-taught creative. You did go to college and you learned how to critically think and you learned a lot of those things, but you learned your creative aspects from doing a lot of school of motion and trial and error. You did the YouTube University route, but you are a very driven person, and you took those things and you said, I want these things, I'm going to find the place to get these things. What if there's somebody who doesn't know, and they go, I want to become a concept artist, but I don't know who to talk to, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, but I need to get the package to get me there. And then on top of it, we talked a little bit now about community. Community's already built in. So it's a package of classes and like what you need to learn to become a technically good person. It's a sense of community. And of a good school, not to like be like, hey, LCAD, yay. But a good school like LCAD, there is not a single person that works there that is not I'm a working professional and I teach there. Every other teacher there is a working professional. Oftentimes people pay to be mentored by those type of people. Now, a huge thing that oftentimes doesn't happen is they don't take advantage of those mentorships. Like, there's so many people out there that are doing like communities and mentors and things like that, and they're paying hundreds of dollars a month to have their community. But you're having multiples of those at these good schools. And so those things of that community, mentorship, and a structure which consistently puts out people that are going to feed into the pipeline of what they want to be doing. And the challenge is far too often people will go like, oh, well, I'm expecting that just because I'm going there, I'm going to get what I need. They don't put in the extra work, or they don't take the advantage of getting their general ed at a community college, and they're stuck there for 4 years, and they're paying their full tuition, and they're paying a lot of money, and then they end up being more in debt than it is there. So I have many thoughts on the challenges and the positive nature of college, but it's for different choices for different people. So back to your point, sorry.
No, that's okay. I appreciate that because I never got to experience the college experience. So I'm a little biased on that. And that is the one thing I'm missing. As with my little journey of like being in the board game space, but like dabbling in game art, I don't have like a game art community. Even though I love the motion graphics community, I don't have that. And that's something that if I went to art school, I probably would have so many more people who are on the same journey.
But also you've done a fantastic job, Jags, of finding all of those things. You made community, you made the courses, you've done an exemplary job of YouTube University, and you're trying to create that for others, which is fantastic. And I think that is a great opportunity for people. So that shouldn't be something that somebody shouldn't hear what I'm saying and go like, oh, the only path is to go to art school. It's what type of person are you, and can you get those things to get what you want? And so back to your original question of like, what is the foundation for somebody who doesn't have those skills? Is obviously you need to learn hard skills and soft skills. Those are kind of the two pieces that you push the levers on. And hard skills you can learn through courses. There's so many different options out there. There's Skillshare, there's Gnomon, there's School of Motion, there's a ton that you can look at. But there's people that have their individual kind of brainstorm academy. There's all sorts of great things that are already built in there to help you get those hard skills of how do I render, how do I skin something, how do I rig things, how do I do branding, how do I use Photoshop, how do I use Illustrator, how do I use all sorts of different technological tools. But what it really comes down to is the ability to think and see. If you can see, you can creatively problem solve. You can run through these things and come up with a solution that isn't just this linear path.
Right. So seeing is not just like visually seeing; it's more like observing with a critical eye. Correct. And coming to some sort of solution based on the problems you observe. Is that what seeing is?
And then, and you're tying in a little bit of that thinking and seeing, but it's like, seeing of literally like, hey, there are shadows here. If we were to literally ask somebody to recreate the lighting that we have on us right now, could somebody do that just by looking at this film? And so for them to be able to technically a lot of times understand what they are seeing with whatever tools they're going to be using. Being able to think is to go, okay, Now, what is the problem that why are we trying to recreate this lighting?
Mm-hmm.
Are we trying to make it more, um, more emotionally resonant? Are we trying to make it feel moody? Are we trying to make it uplifting? What is the purpose? What are we trying to uh, think through?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I've always heard and I always think is you can teach anybody to use software, and that can, in a job, you can learn how to use software. You can learn how to use tools. It's very difficult to teach somebody how to think, how to critically problem solve. And that's one of the challenges I think that a lot of people struggle with is to critically problem solve, to creatively problem solve. Because in the creative field, it is not I do this and it equals this.
It's not linear.
No, there's not one answer either. It's oftentimes, and that's one of the other challenges, art is subjective. Commercial art is subjective. All art is subjective, but commercial art is both subjective and then works within a playground of money stuff.
Right. Okay. So what are you mentioned like it's pretty easy to learn some of the hard skills like software or tools, and then the soft skills is being able to see and think. Imagine like you're talking to like you probably teach a lot of like first year students, second year students.
I teach across the board, but there's a number of great books that both you and I have read, and pulling things from those, I put together, curriculum within that. I always start with the foundation. The absolute foundation of everything is that identity of who are you? Who are you? Who do you want to be? And then how do you have habits? The book Atomic Habits does a fantastic job, super popular book, of going through that. And if you understand the habits that you want, that if you create good habits, you will reinforce that identity. And that's read the book, read the summary.
Okay.
It's a great piece there. And then a next step of it, and the thing that people always would ask me, the first question a lot of students always ask me was, what do I charge for this? And one of my mentors and friends, Mike Janda, he had a good paradigm shift of not what do I charge for this, but how much profit do I want to put into it? Because just like you ordering food somewhere, you know that it doesn't cost them whatever, $8 for that burrito to actually make
burrito
it.
for $8 at this point.
I know.
But it's more like 15 at this point, but it doesn't cost them $15 worth of goods to make the burrito.
But like, and so is that isn't the actual cost of the goods. And your biggest thing as a creative tends to be your time. So you use that as the foundation and then you build out from there. But the shift of that is you can always make more money, you can never make more time. And so if you say to yourself, okay, well, time is my most valuable asset, we only have 4,000 weeks to live, what you actually do with that time is the most valuable thing. That's why it's great to be spending time here with you.
Oh, thank you.
And thanks to everybody here spending time with us. But it's that idea of if you know how to invest your time, and that will then you can work on the finances of those type of things. And then on top of that, you can start to build some of those soft skills of understanding that level of communication. And I go back to the idea of you will be surprised how much, if you've started to build good communication skills in your life, if you just carry those over to your professional world, you end up being very successful. But if you continue to build bad communication skills, you're going to struggle. And good communication skills are being, a good book that I saw with that was the book of Radical Candor, of demonstrating that you care deeply and being very honest. And and people kind of live in different spectrums of there, but like it's very important, I think, for people to be honest, but more importantly, they need to demonstrate that they care deeply. Because if I just am very honest with somebody, someone's going to think that I'm being an asshole.
Fair, yeah.
And yeah, cool, I might get stuff done. And that is better than demonstrating I care deeply and lying to somebody and being like, you're doing great. I would rather be conceived as an asshole than lying to somebody and just being nice. But I think it's very important for us to do both of those things, because if we can say to somebody, I believe in, when I do this a lot because it's the truth, I believe you can do this. You've had some struggles in the past. I've seen some really great things here. I want you to keep doing this that you've done. But if you do these negative things that you're going to continue to do, you will fail. And I do not want to see you fail. How can we continue to encourage you to do these good things?
You are such a good coach. I can imagine like your water polo athletes were probably very grateful to have you, because you, like I've had some coaches in the past who were a little bit more intense than that.
I mean, to be fair, and that's also one of the differences though with sports and like art and things like that, is the amount of time you have to communicate something in Muay Thai or water polo is a millisecond.
Right.
And it's get your hands up, hit in the side of the head.
Right.
Okay, you learn, and you're gonna learn, or it's gonna be that way. Or, yelling at somebody across the pool because they need to hear you.
Right.
And why are you yelling? Because you need to hear me.
Right.
I'm not yelling at you. I am yelling to communicate.
Right.
Or the other really not basic thing, but like, and I would always say it when I was coaching, was the idea that when I had a student or something like that, athlete that would complain, that it's like, why are you yelling at me? Or why are you critiquing me? No, it would be, why are you yelling at me? And it's, you shouldn't be worried when I'm yelling at you. You should be worried when I stop talking to you. Because that means I don't care about you anymore. That means I don't want to see you improve. And that's the thing that we always need to translate to, is if I need to be quick and direct in those moments, they need to know before going into that game, hey, I know, Ted Lasso, great show for that, is I need you to know before going into that game that I just want you to succeed, and success does not necessarily mean points on the board. Success can mean your personal growth, can mean us elevating us as a team, as you stepping into a new uncomfortable position. All of these things are different variations of success. And then if you F it up when you're on the field and you didn't do one of those things, when I come back at you and I say fix it, it needs to be clear that that came before, that it was that wanting you to succeed, and that I'm in your corner and I'm here to help you. And sometimes that isn't always clear, and it needs to be reinforced.
Right. So I'm curious, are there any like ongoing traits that, like all artists, whether they're seasoned veterans or they're just like some of the new students, are there any like specific mindset skills that you think would be more helpful if people kind of adopted from your experience as a coach and as a teacher?
I mean, I think probably the biggest thing that has helped me and I think would help others is, I would say there's kind of two sides that I see. There's either people that are talented, but they don't want to be boisterous or show it off or be vain. And then there's people that are the level of narcissism, pretty much.
Okay.
Going from like completely, I think far too often we glorify both sides of the coin. Complete narcissism and complete selflessness, kind of being like, I'm not here for anybody else. But for example, a lot of times I'm the face of Dyno Creative because other people don't want to be the face. And that was one of the things I learned early on in school was I was like, man, I don't know if you've talked yet. I know you've done a separate little piece, but for April Solomon, you know, she's gotten much better, but we went to school together, and she is infinitely better artist than I ever will be. But early on, she was on the like, just let my work speak for itself side. She was not an advocate for herself. And I was like, oh my gosh, if you could only let others know how awesome you are. And now she's done a fantastic job of really blending those two things and advocating for herself as well as continuing to demonstrate the great work. So I guess that's the balance of learning how to be an advocate for your work as well as doing great work. Because who else is going to be your cheerleader?
No one.
You need to be your own cheerleader, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur. And so if you are a good cheerleader for yourself, that's going to help elevate your work. You know, on the other side, and this is the dichotomy of all of it, I think Bo Burnham had a great visual on it, was like the nature, and I'm butchering it, but like the nature that we had a world of people that wanted to be stars. And then they said, okay, well, here you go. Now you get to be the star of your own world. And now they have to do it 24/7. And now we have the world of social media and all of these different things. And it's a trap within that sense. And so, but I think advocacy can happen in all sorts of different ways.
Right.
One of the reasons a lot of times we see people in the world that we live in rise to success is because you have to have a certain sense of, no, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to do it. That requires narcissism. There is a healthy amount of narcissism which goes in that, which I know what I'm doing, that is narcissism. I'm going to keep doing it, even if I'm getting knocked down. And I mean, like, if there was no narcissism in there, they would be like, well, people are telling me I'm not doing it right, or the world is demonstrating me something, I'm going to stop. And we celebrate this of these successful people that move along, and then also the other side of like people that don't, know your place or stay in your lane or things like that. But there's know the value of your work and translate that. But one of the other, and this actually probably more important than the other part, probably the most important thing I would say is speak the language of the person you are talking to.
Treat them how they want to be treated, basically.
No. I mean, well, the new golden rule is not treat them how they want to be treated. It's, yes, the new golden rule is not treat others how you want to be treated, is treat others how they want to be treated. But it more the sense of, if I'm a CFO, if I'm a person in charge of finances, and you're telling me about the process of how great this video is and all of the aspects of your camera and how this was shot and how great this is going to be creatively, they don't give a shit. You're not talking their language.
Right.
You have one person that's speaking English, one person that's speaking French, and there might be a little bit of overlap, but it's two totally different languages.
Yeah, there's a lack of empathy there.
So you need to translate your information into their language. So how can you say how video is valuable to a CFO if you're talking to a CFO? Or how do you talk to a business owner about how your illustration is going to help their business. Why should they get this illustration? Because look at how nice it is. It's really cool. It's really well rendered. I did a great job with the anatomy.
Right.
Like, who
They
cares?
don't care. Yeah, like freelancing is one of those, like if you go to the Middle Ages in a fantasy world, like it's pretty obvious that you don't want dragons killing the sheep. Like that's a bad thing. But so we as artists are fighting a completely different battle where we're trying to almost convince that like there is you could have more sheep, but you don't have a blatant dragon killing your sheep.
Yeah.
So you have to sell that part of like how it would make, is to an extent you're selling hope rather than saving someone.
It's creative problem solving. It's what is the problem? How do I solve it with my tool set?
Right.
And if you can't, hey, pass it off to the next person. That the right person for the job.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I see, that once people start to get good at good at a skill, whatever it is, illustration or motion design or photography or whatever it is, they just have trouble selling. Like they have trouble translating it. I started to say the word selling, but really it's translating it. It's why do I need this?
Yeah, translating how it could be useful to someone else.
Cool, I have this spoon. I need to hammer in this nail. It's like, well, you could do that. Like,
take a while.
I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah.
Or it's, how do you get someone to understand? How do you understand what their needs are, and then how do you provide them a thing out of your toolbox to solve that problem?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be on this episode.
You're welcome.
I always like to end with a couple fantasy-related questions and how it kind of ties to freelancing.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite loot as a real-world freelancer?
It's my favorite loot.
Yeah, like when you finish a battle, you get the treasure at the end of a freelance project. What do you like to splurge on?
That's actually one of the other things that I think is really important sometimes when you're getting projects, is not necessarily, money buys things. And sure, I go off and I won the adventure. I defeated the dragon. I stopped the vampire, whatever. Me and my team won this quest. Fantastic. You got the gold from that quest. And then you go off and you buy something. That is your translation of you getting paid for that work. And that's a great way to do it. But what if maybe you couldn't get that, like, that isn't the loot that you're going to get. What if the loot that you're going to get is something that you got in the adventure?
Process,
Well,
journey.
Or a sword or whatever.
Right.
One of the things that I've loved that I had had for a really long time was doing my work with Whalebird Kombucha. And part of my deal with them was I got as much kombucha as I wanted.
That's amazing.
And that was my loot.
Yep.
And like I have other friends where they've gotten, tons of toys because
I get board games.
Yeah, you've got tons of board games. Like there's those actual financial loot, as we say. And it could be, experience or things like that are learned. But I think it's really important to think when you're going into those situations, if somebody maybe can't pay you as much, obviously don't go for the idea of, well, exposure. That's always worth nothing. But what is there something that does not have a financial value? Like a direct, hey, I can give this and then we'll get this much money. Is there something that you can get that is worth more to you than that financial value?
So next time we hang out, I'm going to bring you some kombucha.
If only working for real estate companies, you could get houses for, be like, you don't need to pay me anything. I just want a house. That would be the way to be. Right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for all industries, but
I think it should.
yeah. All right. When you put down your sword, or your gauntlets, your magical punching gauntlets, how do you like to relax and wind down from freelancing?
I mean, the plethora of things that I do. That's actually been one of the challenges that I made a goal this year, was to not try to monetize everything that I do, because I'm like, oh, well, what if I sold this, or made a t-shirt, or did that? And so, playing Dungeons and Dragons, or any sort of tabletop RPG, I've just recently been able to get back into playing video games. Right now I'm playing Jedi Survivor, because I'm only a few years behind. I literally have 10 years of games to play. And tabletop games, puzzles. I have a wonderful dog, my wonderful wife, always doing Muay Thai kickboxing. I live in lovely Southern California, so every day's a vacation, in the sense that I can go out almost any time and it's a nice day. But also I do like doing the things that are not building Dyno outside of that. So I really like cooking. So.
And then the last question I have, and you have to answer this in one word or one sentence at most. What is your why as a freelancer?
Evolution.
Evolution? Okay. You want to evolve like a Pokemon?
Yeah.
Okay, what Pokemon?
That's what we've been talking about this whole time.
Amazing. What Pokemon?
I'm too old of a man for Pokemon.
Oh wow! Actually, okay.
The time I was a Magic the Gathering kid.
Okay.
And when I worked at a comic book store, I saw Pokemon come in, and I was like, but I never got into Pokemon.
Okay.
But again, respect it, and it makes me feel real old, because I'm like, man, Pokemon is 30 plus years old now.
Yeah, it's wild.
And so, but yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Evolution.
But dinosaurs, bro.
Okay.
Dinosaurs.
Okay. Dyno Creative,
Right.
Evolution, dinosaurs. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you for being part of the Creative Adventure podcast today. Where can people find you?
Probably you should just follow dynocreative.com. And if you want to do it personally, you can follow my personal one of by Adoff, Adoff. But that one is not fun.
Okay.
My Dyno Creative one is the actual one that is updated.
Great.
Or Mythic Gourmet, that's the other one.
Okay, cool. Well, everyone, thank you for listening to the Creative Adventure podcast, and may the freelance dice forever roll in your favor. I have the D20 here for you, and you're going to roll initiative on your next freelance project.
Wonderful.
To see how well
I normally roll so terrible
right.
in all campaigns. Oh, that's pretty good, 18.
All right. Amazing.
It's going to go well. That's almost a critical.
Yeah, it's almost a critical, so you're going to have an amazing project.
Yes, it's going to go well.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to listen to the Creative Adventure podcast. I hope the time is worth it, because you are not getting it back. But if you learned something, got something of value out of this podcast, it would be amazing if I could ask you to take 5 minutes, no more, like 30 seconds, to go leave a review or make a comment. And the reason why I'm asking is it always does help the social media algorithm thing, so that this podcast can be shared with more people, so we can help more artists embrace the ability to make a living doing what we love to do, and also hopefully buy food and maybe a sword here and there as well. Again, thank you very much, and until next time, may the freelance dice forever roll in your favor. Take care.